Today's guest is coming to us from Boston, Massachusetts. She is a dear friend. She earns the award for the most patient person that I've ever traveled with. And she is my favorite safety monitor. Everybody, welcome Jaime Itani.
Hi, everyone.
Woo! Woo woo. Yeah. Do you have your morning coffee? I know it's we got a 3-hour difference, so it's almost lunch for you, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's 11:30 my time. I have tea.
Okay, so today we are going to talk about specifically the White Mountains and the surrounding area. And you live in Boston, Massachusetts, like I just said. And so, just to give the listeners a little bit of background, you are a mom of 3 children. You keep 3 people alive every day.
Yes.
You're a wife, you're a sister, you're an aunt. Your day to day is filled with responsibility in the best way possible, of course.
Yeah.
So my question is, over the past 10 years, what has drawn you into becoming such a hiking enthusiast, especially locally, like in your area?
Yeah, great questions. It's just been a progression, that's taken years. And I started off just hiking local trails. And it's relatively flat where I live. We don't have the big mountains, and that's why I like to go to New Hampshire, because that's where the mountains are. But yeah, I started off just, hiking with the kids, and we have what's called Blue Hills near me. That's a park that I go to all the time, and I love it. And there are, it's just very minimal elevation, but you're in the woods, and it's really nice. And so from there, I just got more confidence and started venturing out. I would go to New Hampshire. I started hiking up in the White Mountains, which is like 2.5 to 3.5 hours from where I live, north. It's up in like central north New Hampshire. And so found out about hiking lists that they have up in New Hampshire. So I've been working on the 4,000 footers, which in New Hampshire alone, there are 48 mountains that are on this particular list that are all higher than 4,000 feet. The highest one is Mount Washington, which is only, it's over 6,200 feet. So our mountains, in New England are relatively small compared to the ones that you've got out west. But, they're a lot of fun. The trails are really rugged. And I think someone is drilling something in my house. Random. The trails are very rugged. They're full of like big boulders and rocks and roots. And, they're pretty, for the most part, straight up the mountain. We don't have these nice, like switchbacky, meandering trails. A lot of them just go straight up. They're super steep. You're climbing over boulders and doing a little rock climbing on some of them, but it's so much fun. Yeah. So it's just been a progression over the years where taking the kids, or I've met other friends who like to do stuff like that, and started working on other hiking lists too, other than the 4,000 footers.
Where are you finding these hiking lists at? Like, is it on the internet? Like, how did you hear
I
about
heard
them?
other people talking about them, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like, I didn't grow up, in an outdoorsy family. I didn't, ski until I started off snowboarding when I was 21. So like we never went to the mountains. I didn't see mountains until I was college, and I went home with a friend of mine for Thanksgiving who lived out in the Berkshires, which is out in Western Mass, and saw mountains for the first time ever.
Wow.
And I just fell in love with being in the woods and hiking, and I really like to ski. So a friend and I, we were rock climbers, like gym climbers, and so we were in great shape, and we thought, hey, let's go hike a mountain. So the only one we knew of was Mount Washington, the highest mountain in New England. So we went there. Totally, we were the stereotypical stupid idiot, unprepared. We didn't have half the things that we should have had, just in case, the weather turned, and we just lucked out with unseasonably warm fall weather, great trail conditions, and we lived. We hiked out in the dark because it took us a really long time. And luckily, my friend just happened to have like a tiny little flashlight on him. We didn't have headlamps. It was very dangerous. Like now.
Was this like pre-cell phone flashlights?
Yes. Did I have a cell? So this was 2005, 20 years ago. And looking back on it now, like it could have ended so badly. We didn't have a map. We didn't bring headlamps or extra clothes. And it was October, but it was it was warm, and we made it back to the car, and it was fine. And now I know not to do something like that. But that was my first hike, and it was just mind blowing. It was like peak foliage, October,
Yeah.
gorgeous, just a gorgeous day. And we took way too much time just, sitting and enjoying the view.
But I love that you like to sit and enjoy the view. Like
Yes.
this last time, a couple years ago, I came out to visit you, and you took me up to the White Mountains. Like, we were on the top, and we had our snacks, we had our PB&J, and we just enjoyed some of that time. I have hiked with way too many people that are up there for 2 minutes. They take a picture, and they're like, "All right, let's head back down." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, like
Oh yeah.
I need some me time right now."
Exactly. I know. Yeah, I'm kind of a slower paced person too, and I like to enjoy it. And there's a lot of hikes that I've done where there's like awesome swimming holes. And it's like, I just
Yes.
want to sit in this swimming hole and just enjoy. But my hiking buddy is like, we don't have time. We need to keep it moving. I'm like, all right, I will be back. I need to schedule more hikes where I have like more time or spend the night up there. A lot of my hikes are just day hikes, which means I wake up in the middle of the night, and, usually my friend comes over. She's at my house by like whatever time, 4 or 5 a.m.
Mhm.
We hit Dunkin' Donuts and we drive north for 3 hours, get to the trailhead, hike our mountain, and then we drive home. So it's a very
Right.
long day, and that's what we do.
But worth it. Side note, you guys in the Northeast love your Dunkin' Donuts.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a stereotype that kind of fits, at least my friends. In my friend group,
Yep.
all my Northeast people, they love Dunkin' Donuts. But just to kind of play off what you just said, there's this concept that kind of follows around the world of travel. And sometimes it kind of puts pressure on people to go to the most exciting places all the time. It's got to be IG, Instagram worthy. And I love that. If you want to go and you save up and you do it, I love that for you. I'm not knocking that, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, like, even if it's just time in your life where you're really busy, or you have school, or the money's not there. I mean, you don't have to, save up $10,000 and go to Patagonia. I mean, if you can, go. but
Exactly.
if you can't, like, just like finding what's around you and available locally.
Yes. Everybody's got something local that they can do. There are parks everywhere. Depending on where you live, there's always something.
Yeah. And especially in the United States, well, right now, at least, we still have all of our parks, right? And I mean, I just feel like there's so much public access to a lot of parks. And I guess my question next, because you do live in a very populated part of the United States. I mean, the Northeast, very populated. In your community, the hiking community, is it overcrowded when you go to the mountains, or do you still feel like you're able to explore nature without tripping over the person in front of you?
Oh, I've definitely been on those trails that it just feels like you're in a conga line. There are definitely certain times of year and on certain days on certain trails that are just super popular. Everybody knows about. The first one that comes to mind it's called the Franconia Ridge Hike, which is up in New Hampshire. It has 2 4,000 footers. So it's a loop, and you hit Mount Lincoln, Mount Lafayette. This is probably one of the most popular hikes in New Hampshire. Everybody hears about it. It's super accessible, meaning the trailhead is right off the main highway. So you can just shoot up from Boston or from wherever. And it's so easy to get to. And people think that it must be easy. The hike itself must be easy. And it's not. It's very steep, very rugged, very exposed. You're hiking along a ridge for miles. Between the mountains. It can be very dangerous because the weather up on the ridge can be very different than at the trailhead. Can be very windy. You're just exposed to all the elements up there. So you really have to do your work preparing for this hike.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the weather, looking at the summit weather, what it's doing up top, making sure that you have all your emergency gear and equipment and headlamps. And in the event that, God forbid, someone gets hurt or, you have to sit for a while, you just have to make sure that you're going to be comfortable and warm and dry. So that is a super busy trail that everybody flocks to. It's one of the most popular ones, like Franconia Ridge. That hike is so busy in the warm weather. I mean, people hike it other times a year just to avoid the crowds, or they'll go like early in the morning. So for this trailhead, you have to get there very early because it fills up and you're out of luck. You have to go park somewhere else or find a different hike to do that day.
Okay.
Or some people will start in the dark, just to kind of avoid all the crowds and avoid the parking issues. Mount Washington is another one because everybody knows about Mount Washington. So people go there, and there are all different trails coming from, different sides of the mountain. And that can be very busy too. And you see a lot of unprepared people who just don't know, they didn't bring water, or they're wearing the wrong footwear. I've actually seen signs at trailheads with a picture of a flip-flop saying, this is not hiking footwear. Like, do not attempt your hike in flip-flops, or you've seen crazy. I've seen people barefoot. So what?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, people in Crocs kinds of things passing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? You can get away with some of that stuff. If anybody's familiar with Stone Mountain in Atlanta, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, Georgia, like it's not really a mountain; it's more of a rock. But you can climb something like that with Crocs. Okay, you can walk up, you can enjoy the top, but
and it's not backcountry. You're not far from help if you need it or something. I actually saw, last time I was up there with my brothers, we saw someone shooting a rap video on top of Stone Mountain. They had cameras, and it was very cool. So that.
Oh yeah, that's a great spot. But this isn't when you're going to the White Mountains. This isn't Croc material. Like you need more than Crocs and half a bottle of water. So let me ask you this: for people that are local, the Northeast, they're local and they want to visit these mountains. Yeah, is there a best time of year? Is there a best time of the week? Like, what do you recommend as far as people getting out there and actually experiencing these mountains?
Yeah. So people ask this question a lot on like the Facebook 4,000 footer groups. They're like, what's the best mountain to start with? And like the advice that's always given to beginners is start small. Like you don't necessarily need to start with a 4,000 footer. We have hills, we have smaller mountains, like start there just to kind of get your gear dialed in, so to speak. Like know what you need, know how much water you drink on a hike, make sure you know what to wear and how hot you run, how cold you run. You have to know these things and do it on a smaller hike before you attempt something longer or further into the backcountry. Start small and progress.
Right. Whether on this forum or from your personal preference, is there a couple mountains that just really stand out to you? Like, hey, if you can only do one or two hikes, like these are the ones to do from your perspective.
So, I mean, in my area, if you live in the Boston area, I think Blue Hills is awesome. So that's here in Massachusetts. It's a large park with many, many hills. And it's like my favorite trail in Blue Hills is the Skyline. And it traverses the whole Blue Hills. It's about 9 miles. And I've counted once on the map. You go over like 12 of the hills. So it's quite a bit of, up and down elevation gain. So it's great training for New Hampshire, for, bigger mountains that you want to go to. So Blue Hills is great. Southern New Hampshire, the Belknap Range has a bunch of really popular trails. Those mountains are, I want to say, like around 2,000 feet-ish. So that's a lot of fun. Like another hiking list that I'm working on is the 52 with a view. So it's 52 mountains all over New Hampshire. They're all under 4,000 feet tall. And the other requirement is that they all have a pretty spectacular view at the top, weather permitting. So those are a lot of fun. I tell people to work on those, like start with the 52 with a view.
So if you get up to one of the trails with 52 with a view and there's no view, does it count?
It does count. It does count. Okay. On the list. I've done a bunch of those in a snowstorm. in a rainstorm, and it's like, oh, I'm missing out on the view. I'm gonna have to come back to the view another time. But like a great mountain that's relatively short, I think it's only 3 miles round trip. Mount Willard is a really popular one up in that's in the White Mountains. But that's a really great one. It's relatively gentle. You're not climbing over boulders. There's nothing technical about it. But that's one I always recommend if you're up in New Hampshire, do Mount Willard.
Is it a year-round thing that you need to bring micro spikes with you when you're hiking in the White Mountains?
There's definitely ice year-round on some of the trails, but no. Like I'd say from September to May is when I always carry micro spikes.
So most of the year.
Yeah. For the summer, you're pretty much good.
You're good.
You're not going to encounter ice on 99% of the trails. But yeah, definitely that's something that every, 3 or 4 season hiker should have. You need to have good micro spikes, not just, the coils, not yak tracks, not nano spikes. It's got to be like the little trail crampons, so to speak.
Okay. And then I've seen in some of your posts with you going snowshoeing. For people that might not be aware, what's the difference between snowshoeing and needing micro spikes?
So I like to hike in the winter. That's my favorite season to hike in. When you hike in the winter, you need to bring both. So micro spikes are needed for sometimes the trail is a sheet of ice, like a literal sheet of ice that you need like the steel spikes from micro spikes to dig in, or if it's like crunchy snow that's not very deep. If the snow is more than a couple inches to, sometimes you're encountering like a couple feet of snow. You always have to bring your snowshoes too. And sometimes you have to switch back and forth from micro spikes to snowshoes as you ascend to a higher elevation. But that's just something that always needs to be in your winter pack, along with all your emergency gear. And my winter backpack is a lot heavier than, my summer pack, because you have to, strap your snowshoes to it, have your spikes, have all the layers and extra stuff that you need.
You said emergency gear. What are things that like you're not getting on the trail without? I know you got a couple because you're my safety monitor.
Let me think. All right. So for winter, definitely need snowshoes. Can be very dangerous if you're hiking in winter and the snow gets very deep again, and it can be like a totally different conditions up higher as opposed to at the trailhead. You get to the trailhead and you think, oh, it's pretty clear, or the snow is, I just see an inch of snow. When you get up higher, you can encounter a lot more. So you just have to be prepared for whatever. There are also websites online where people post trail conditions or what it looks like. Or I kind of research in the 4,000 footer Facebook groups. People will post pictures or, what they saw higher elevations, which can be really helpful if you're planning your hike. So I actually keep a list in my phone. I have like my summer packing list and my winter packing list. So winter, you always have non-cotton synthetic layers, wool, extra socks, food that will not freeze, lots of snacks. I bring like a thermos of like hot tea a lot of time in an insulated container. Sometimes I'll bring hot soup, like I'll heat up soup, throw that in a thermos. That's always nice to have like hot drink on the trail or hot food. Let's see, spikes, snowshoes. I wear tall gaiters, which are these they're like nylon. They kind of hook onto your boots and then they cover your lower leg. So when you're kind of snowshoeing or wading through this deep snow, doesn't get your lower leg, in contact with wetness. It keeps you dry. And I wear like rain pants under that. And then under that, my layers, like a wool layer and Gore-Tex shell jacket over many layers, and it's a constant taking off layers. And you want to start off kind of cold, feeling a little cold, because once you start moving, you heat up. And so you're taking off layers or adding layers, if it's windy or if you're going above tree line. A lot of times we wear, or I bring like ski goggles if it's snowing or if you're going above tree line. So it's just, I have a whole long list of stuff that I have absolutely, need to bring.
Do you find that you are more over prepared than the people and the groups that you hike with? Or are you everybody kind of is just ready for
Yeah.
this?
So when I lead or co-lead hikes with the Appalachian Mountain Club, we communicate a lot with the group, with the people who register for the hikes, and we send out
Good.
lists. This is what you need to bring. This is what we recommend. Ooh, a power bank. That's another thing that just popped in my mind, because you don't want your, phone or my headlamp. I charge it, and I bring multiple headlamps. Yeah. So we just communicate with everyone, this is what you should be wearing. This is what you should have in your pack. This is what you need to bring, to eat and drink, and, make sure you have everything, because just in case something happens, you never know.
Have you had any close encounters this year of like, hey, you know what? I'm really glad that I was prepared.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So a month or so ago, 2 months ago, my friend and I, we snowshoed up a mountain. It was
Which one?
Mount Galehead. It's one of the 4,000 footers in New Hampshire. It was very snowy. We started off in spikes, or maybe bare boots, so some of the trails close in winter. Like, they don't even bother to plow them. So they're
Right.
just closed all winter, and they usually open back up in like May when
Mhm.
most of the snow is gone. So this particular hike, we had to park somewhere else because the summer trailhead was closed. So we had to start at like a cross country trail parking lot. So we're in this big parking lot. We get there. It's January, and there was actually a storm predicted for that evening. So we're like, all right, we're going to bang this out. We need to be back to the car by sunset, which sunset up here is like between 4:30. It gets dark. So we saw one other car in the parking lot. So we get in, we start off on the cross country ski trails, and then we quickly realized that, okay, we need to throw our snowshoes on. So we wore the snowshoes for almost the whole hike. Up near the summit, it was very deep snow, and we head back down. We get back to the car, and my car wouldn't start. Like, we were in a hurry to get out of there and to head back home. We had almost a 3-hour drive, and we wanted to beat the snowstorm, but my car wouldn't start. So we're in a deserted parking lot. The other car had left. The nice thing was, okay, first of all, we had cell service, and we had power banks. And so we were able to text and make phone calls. A lot of people, just as a side note, a lot of people have like satellite communicators that work even if there's no phone service. They're able to communicate with these special devices. I do not have one.
Right.
It's on my list to get one, because there's a lot of times you're on a trail or you're at a trailhead and there's no service. Like, you can't contact anyone. That particular day, we were just very lucky that there was cell service. So right away, I went on my AAA app and requested, a tow truck or a jump or something. So we're waiting. It's starting to get dark. It's very cold. Now, keep in mind, it was like in the 20s all day. And we were working, snowshoeing, we're, bottom layer is, a little sweaty. We're warm. But then as soon as we get in the car, my car and I had opened the trunk to put stuff in it. And then because of the dead battery, it only closed halfway. It didn't close all the way. So we're kind of just sitting in my car, cooling down rapidly. My trunk wouldn't close. So it was windy. It was starting to snow at this point. And we're just thinking, we're not going to wait that long for someone to come and jump my car. Well, we ended up waiting for 2 hours because the AAA couldn't find someone to come help us. And by the time that someone was able to come and jump the car, we'd been sitting there for a while, and we were really cooled off. And my friend luckily had the thought, like, hey, let's get in our sleeping bags. We had sleeping bags. We had a bunch of hand warmers. So we just activated all of them. And that's what we did to stay warm, which was great. So thank goodness we had that, or else we would have been freezing.
Yeah.
So you have to have layers. You need to change out of any wet clothes. Always bring extra socks, an extra shirt. So we had all that stuff. We had sleeping bags. We had hand warmers. So we were able to be comfortable while we waited, and you don't anticipate these things all the time, but they happen.
Oh,
or
yeah.
any scenario.
Yeah. Okay. So people that live in your area that want to check out more hikes or maybe join one of your clubs or meetup groups, how can people find out how to join these groups?
So I lead hikes with the Appalachian Mountain Club. We have a bunch of different chapters. So I work with the Boston chapter, but I mean they have chapters up in the mountains, up out in Western Mass. So you can search on the website to find your local Appalachian Mountain Club chapter. They do a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
including, leading events, leading hikes, leading ski trips, there's a whole bunch of different activities, whatever you're into. There's a Facebook group that I'm involved with called Adventuring Mamas of New England. I
Mm-hmm.
sometimes lead hikes or activities with them. So you just look around. There's always different groups. There are meetup groups. If you can't find anything in your specific area or your town, start something, because there are always people who are looking to join activities to get more knowledgeable about things. And I've learned so much from just joining these groups myself, being a beginner, and you learn from other people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been great.
That's awesome. So you've been hiking for like you've been into it, what, for like the last 10 years or so?
So I started working on the hiking lists, like in 2019. The first time I just kind of went out of my comfort zone and joined a group. It was with the Adventuring Mamas group. And, someone posted about, doing a hike up in the White Mountains and staying overnight. And we stayed at like a hiker lodge up there, an AMC lodge. And they had this whole
Uh-huh.
plan. Does anyone want to join? It's basically like just a meetup. When I told my husband about it, he's like, are you nuts? Like, you're going to meet who, where, you're going to sleep over? um and it was amazing.
That
Like,
sounds like
I met up with these other moms and we did some hiking. And that night, like, we had dinner, and then we all kind of, we're hanging out at the lodge. Everyone pulls out their, so I like to read. And all the other moms I was with, they all pulled out their books and they're like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and read now. I'm like, this is awesome. This is amazing. Like, I need to do more of this, and you find your people as you start. I was totally out of my comfort zone. You meet people for the first time, and, you don't know how it's going to go, but definitely I recommend taking the chance, and, it can be really fun.
it's so important to really just find your
Yeah.
community, right? Whether, I mean, it doesn't have to be
Any
hiking, it
activity.
could be whatever you're good at
Yep.
or not good at. Yeah, any activity. But to find that community really gives you a little bit more, wouldn't you say, just a little bit more umph?
Yeah.
Like it gets you more excited and you're able to look forward to stuff besides just the
Absolutely. I
day
mean,
to
you need
day
it.
of
You need
life.
anybody, not just moms or, anybody. You need to find what you love to do, find friends who like to do those things. At the time, back in 2019, like, I would ask some friends or ask family members, like, hey, do you want to go on this hike with me? Or do you want to do this? And friends have told me that doesn't sound fun. Why would you want to do that? So you gotta
Mhm.
find other people who like to do what you do. Like, I wanted to get more into camping, and I learned once I joined a couple camping events and, family events where, other families were bringing their kids. And I said, that kind of sounds fun. And I learned so
Mhm.
much about how to bring my kids camping the next time on my own. You can learn a lot
Mhm.
and you can make friends in the process. So,
There's a meme, or I'm sure there's some comedians. I think there's a comedian, Jim Gaffigan. I think he has a bit on camping and hiking. And I wish I would have looked it up, but it's just kind of making fun of the whole concept of it, of like we spend a lot of money,
yeah.
to go live like we're poor, right? And that can definitely be true. You can walk around REI, you can be totally overwhelmed and be like, I don't have 20 grand to get started to be this hiker
Yeah.
and camper that has everything. But me personally, I have found ways around that. Used gear,
Yes.
Facebook Marketplace. I mean, I got a brand new, not a brand new, but I used snowboard boots, bindings,
Yes.
everything for $100. You know, I mean, you can really
Yeah.
find affordable things so
Yeah.
that you can start this journey. So I just don't want people to be so overwhelmed with thinking they got to spend like thousands and thousands of dollars. So like, do you have any advice on like how to make this an affordable adventure?
Activities are super expensive. Once you get into it and you see other gear that people are using and wearing, like, oh yeah, yeah, give me all the used stuff. I love exactly like Facebook Marketplace. Yeah, I bought someone's cross country skis, like their whole setup. She's like, I used them once and I just wasn't into it, and I'd been looking. Someone was selling, my exact size boot and skis that I use, and I got it for $100, so you
Wow.
can find things. So I keep another list in my phone of things to buy, like things that I want, like things that are nice to have, like a nice upgrade. I have, middle of the road winter snowshoes that are good for mountaineering, but I would really like these winter snowshoes that have the televators, which is just a bar that kind of reduces calf fatigue. It kind of helps you ascend anyway. But yeah, I have a whole list of stuff that when I see it go on sale or when I see someone post it, there's all kinds of groups on Facebook. People sell their backpacking stuff, camping stuff. I have a good like used sporting goods store in my area. So you can always find consignment sporting goods.
Nice.
People sell used gear that's still in great condition.
Right. So I just didn't want people to listen to our conversation. And even though it is important to be prepared, like for your safety and security, it's like, I don't want people to be like, this sounds too expensive for me to start.
Exactly.
Like they can find used products.
If you take the time to look for them. Yeah.
Because it can be worth it, right? Hiking, I think, is one of those things where you might think that because you're not somebody who likes to work out, that it would just, you wouldn't like it or it was not your thing. But man, it's different. It's a different breed, right? Like just being able to walk and get in that zone and the groove. I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was never into hiking until I did it. And you just really liked the kind of meditative quality is, when I'm by myself and, you're just in the zone. And a lot of people do it for the views. If you're in a beautiful place it's a lot of different aspects of it. It's not just a workout, although that's a nice bonus too. It's great for mental health to just get out there and get away from the noise of your life and just kind of disconnect for a while. There's so many advantages. It's great.
Do you have to have your own car if you want to go on into these groups and on these hikes? Like, are you able to carpool?
Well, so when we're leading with Appalachian Mountain Club, you can always arrange carpooling. We always put it out, like I put it out to the group, is anyone interested in carpooling? Because one of the participants asked, because everybody's coming from everywhere else. And it didn't work out in this particular hike from last weekend. Like one person asked, was interested in carpooling, but nobody else was. But for the most part, we in any group, you can put it out there, say, hey, I'm coming from this area. Does anyone want to ride together? Or people often try to do that. And especially if you're going to a trailhead that isn't that big,
Mm-hmm.
some of the trailheads, they only accommodate a few cars and you need to carp, whether you you meet up somewhere and then you all kind of cram into one or two cars. And
so for example, out here in the Pacific Northwest, basically every hike that you go on, it's either in a national park or a state park. I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them. And you have to have some sort of pass or, pay for a parking pass for the day. Do you have to do the same there? Do you have to have any specific requirements to park somewhere?
Oh, that's a great question. So like I know up in the White Mountains, we do pay for, there's like they call it the Iron Ranger that you have to put money in. It's like $5. There is a parking fee for a lot of the trailheads, and some of them are free. They don't have these that you pay for. And then I've been to New Hampshire state parks where you have to pay. You can pay online and like reserve your parking pass ahead of time. So yeah, some you pay and some you don't.
I just remember thinking, even as somebody who's done this for a while. I recently went somewhere and you had to pay to park and you could use your phone, but I had zero service, right? And then they're like, oh, or you could pay $5. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm one of those people who like doesn't have cash on them. So, so I'm just like, wow, I should have thought this through.
Yeah.
So
I know that's part of the preparation too, is figuring out, okay, what do I need? Where are we parking? Is there going to be room for me at whatever time we're planning to get there? How much does it cost? And I'm the same way. I never have cash on me. So it's usually like my hiking buddy who's like, all right, I got this.
Yeah. Okay. So as somebody who has hiked somewhere on the West Coast as well and out in Colorado, people from Colorado might be like, 4,000. Like, I don't do it unless it's 14,000. Right. I mean, that's just, I get that. Like, there's some really tall, beautiful mountains, Colorado and beyond. But when I came and visited you and we did what trail did we do?
So we hiked 2 mountains, Morgan and Percival.
Okay. Were either one of those 4,000?
No. So they are on the 52 with a view list. So they're under 4,000 feet tall, both of them. They're also on another list called the Terrifying 25. So someone created this list. This particular hiking list is trails that have like a ladder. So you remember like Mount Morgan, we had to climb. It was like 3 sketchy wooden ladders. That's kind of like really steep. And then when we're coming down Percival, it has like a cave section, and you can skip the ladders if you don't want to do them. You can skip the caves if you don't want to do them. But that was the hike that you and I did.
Yeah. And I just want to say that it was incredible. I mean, the view was beautiful. Yeah. The hike was, to me, challenging just because, like you said earlier, it is just steep. I don't remember a switchback, like I don't remember a gradual incline. It was just really steep. Yeah. So it was, even though people might scoff at it and be like, oh, that's not very high or whatever from their perspective, it's still such a great experience. It's a great workout. It's a beautiful view. Yeah. It is gorgeous and totally worth the hike. Yeah, for sure.
A lot of fun. I mean, my longest hike, one of the 4,000 footers, it's called Owl's Head. Did it, I think, last summer, last early fall or something. My friends and I, we were putting this hike off because the shortest route to get to the summit is over 17 miles. Like, it's just, it's remote. And we're like, how do we do it? Like, do we backpack it and like camp somewhere on the mountain to make it shorter? And, we were really, stressing out about this particular hike. And we just decided to do it as a day hike. It was so much fun. But I mean, first of all, most of the miles are relatively flat. You're not hiking a lot of elevation until you get closer to the summit. So it was just like a beautiful, flat-ish walk through beautiful woods, and it was really great. So we were putting it off for a long time just because it's such a long hike to get to the summit, but it was great.
I always end a podcast with 3 personal, pointless, fun, embarrassing, whatever style questions. I have 3 of those for you, but before I hit those up, just kind of let me know if I'm like, yeah, I want to try this. I want to try out these White Mountains. Give me your top 3. Your top 3.
They're all so awesome and different. They're all kind of a different experience, and you see different things along the way. And any day it can be, you see different wildlife or, different ponds, or it's just the trails are a different experience. But I'd say one that stands out to me that's not particularly, technical or difficult would be, there's a 4,000 footer called Moosilauke. Or Moosilauke. I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but
you're selling that. Was Moosilauke.
Yeah. That was a really it's a fun, really beautiful hike. When I did it, it was I think October or November, and near the summit, you're very exposed. It's above tree line, and there was a lot of rime ice all over the bushes up there, and we needed spikes, and it can be, very exposed to the elements up there. But it was just a very pretty hike. That I would say Garfield. There's another mountain called Garfield. It's another one that's really kind of gentle, nothing technical, and you get up to the top and you have this really beautiful view of the Pemigewasset wilderness. So that was another one that stands out in my mind. Third one, so my friend and I, we hike what are called the Bonds. So there are 3 mountains. We did an out and back with an overnight. We stayed at like a backcountry campsite that has a big wooden shelter. And there's Bond Cliff, which people go and, a lot of people save this hike or this mountain for their 48th, their big finish, because it's kind of like an epic view. A lot of people go out on this rock outcropping and it's very remote. It's very, very pretty. So there's Bond Cliff, there's Mount Bond, and there's West Bond. These 3 mountains that we summited on this particular hike. And West Bond, it was funny because I hadn't heard anyone ever talk about West Bond. It's just, one of the mountains that you have to do on this list. And I was blown away. My friend and I get to the summit. We had just woken up, at camp. We broke everything down, packed up our bags. And so West Bond, there's like a little spur trail to get to the summit. So we had actually dropped our big packs and tent and everything, and we kind of stashed it in the woods to go on this spur trail. I want to say like a half mile or something out and back to the summit. And we get to the top. We had the summit to ourselves. It was early morning and there was just like this beautiful undercast, meaning we were above the clouds, standing on the summit of this mountain. It blew my mind. I'm like, this is awesome. So why doesn't anyone talk about West Bond? This is amazing. So that was.
So you're talking about it now.
That was a great hike. Not a beginner hike because it's very long. I forgot how much it was each way, and there was definitely a lot of climbing on boulders and, rooty, rocky trails. It's not an easy one, but it sticks out in my mind, definitely.
Okay. Thank you so much I know you're busy. I know you have children upstairs and a husband, and life can be crazy, but I love how you just set aside some time just to talk to me. And maybe, if somebody's listening that in your area that is looking for that community, looking for that group, I hope
go out and
that
find it.
They can join. Yeah, find it. And your group specifically that you lead up, what's it called?
So I volunteer with the Appalachian Mountain Club, the Boston chapter. So, there are Facebook pages for there's a hiking subcommittee. There's skiing. There's a young members group, 20s and 30s, which that's not me. I'm not part of that group anymore. But there's all different, there's a Worcester chapter, which is out in more like central Mass. There's a Western Mass. So whatever area you're in, find your group. If you're in, on the East Coast, find an Appalachian Mountain Club chapter near you. The other Facebook page is in my region. It's Adventuring Mamas of New England. And we have different state reps. So I'm the Massachusetts rep currently. And but each state has, a lot of adventuring mamas in it and who are, always posting hikes and get-togethers. So just look around.
Right. So if you want something else to post about besides your children, look up this group, find Jaime. She'll get you some Instagram worthy shots.
Yeah.
And that sounds fun. I love it. And now I have 3 amazing questions for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Number 1, you have to leave home without one of these things. Like you have to get on the trail, and you are very prepared. You are one of the most over prepared, but like in the best way, people that I know. You're ready. But you have to leave home with one of these. Which one is it? Number 1, a flashlight. Number 2, an extra pair of socks. Number 3, your hiking poles. Which one are you leaving home?
All right. So headlamp, flashlight is a non-negotiable. I've learned from experience. You're not getting too far if you can't see. So headlamps coming with me. Spare socks, very important. You have to cross a water crossing, or you step in, slushy ice or whatever, and you have to take care of your feet and keep them dry. I would take the socks.
Okay.
Poles are very important. I love my poles, and I usually bring them when I hike up in New Hampshire, just to reduce like fatigue. You get to the end of the hike and you're like, Like I need help, especially if you're going downhill, they can save your knees a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think poles are really important, but I could live without them.
All right. I mean, unfortunately, that would be my answer
Yeah.
too. Even though, I love my hiking
Yeah.
poles. Like, I'll probably be the 80-year-old that's like walking around my neighborhood with hiking
Yep.
poles, just because they're
I have
just
someone in
like
my neighborhood.
becoming.
She hikes our
Yeah,
flat streets with hiking poles, and
yeah,
and it's just
I
so helpful
know.
with balance, and I get it.
Yes. Okay. The second question. You're hiking, you walk around the
Mhm.
corner and you see this animal. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to give you three
Okay.
options. You have to pick one. Let's just pretend that you walked right up on it.
Oh
Okay.
boy.
You get to either choose you walk up on a
Mhm.
cougar, you walk up on a black
Mhm.
bear. I want to make that
Okay.
specific because it'd be different for me if it was a
Yep.
grizzly. And number three, a poisonous snake.
I'd probably say the snake. Yeah, cougar would scare the crap out of me. Black bear, I've seen them from afar. Definitely wouldn't want to get too close. Probably have to pick the snake because maybe
Yeah.
I'd be most able to get away from it. I don't know.
hmm No, I agree. I just know that some people have like this internal fear of snakes that just like paralyzes them. But that would be, I feel like that's your best bet,
Yeah.
right?
They're the smallest out of the three. Yeah, I'd definitely go with a snake.
Last one. Okay, if you were hiking in on this terrain or in this climate, I want you to choose which one that you would just choose first. Okay. Number one, would you choose below freezing temperatures in the
Mhm.
snow? Number two, would you choose 100 degrees Fahrenheit and above? Or number three, would you choose nonstop rain? Like hard rain, not just the little light
Yeah.
sprinkle I get here in the Pacific Northwest, but like a hard rain. So, like, if you had to get caught in that weather in one of the three, which one are you
Yeah.
choosing?
Ugh. Rain is no fun. Heat is no fun. I hate it when it's too hot. Like even in the wintertime, I get really hot. So I'm always managing, my layers so that I'm not sweating. So
Mhm.
I would hate the 100 degrees. I would hate the rain. The first one was what? A snowstorm?
It was below freezing temps in the snow.
Yeah, I'd go with the winter conditions. Give me the winter conditions any day. I've hiked in snowstorms, and as long as your gear is, you have the right gear on and you can stay dry, definitely I'd go with the snow and below freezing temperatures because most likely I'd still be sweating and it's still hot, even at freezing temperatures.
I would probably pick the 100 degrees. I don't know. I like the hot weather. Maybe it's from being from the
You're a
South,
Georgia girl,
but
so it doesn't affect you.
give me that 100 degrees. Yes. Oh god. Well, I've loved talking to you. Thank you for telling us about your experiences and the White
Yeah, thank
Mountains and
you.
just kind of giving a little bit of inspiration to the mamas out there that hey, you might not have a week off. You might not even have a full day off. I totally get that. But even if you can find somewhere
Yeah,
local around you, get the morning off, drive an
yeah.
hour. It's
Exactly. Yeah, you
worth
don't have
it.
to drive 3 hours each way to go to the mountains. That's not necessary. I enjoy it,
Right.
but
I do too.
it's not for everybody. Um, so
No.
yeah, definitely there's local places that you can go to and get a quick little micro adventure in.
Micro
Yeah.
adventures. I like it.
Mhm.
That'd be a good name for a tour company. Micro adventures.
Yeah.
There's probably already one out there. I'll Google it. All right. Well, I love your
Yeah,
face. I hope you have a
me
great day.
too. Thanks, Darla.
Talk to you
Okay.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Attention passengers, we've now reached our destination. We hope you enjoyed the flight and have a nice day.